Good afternoon. Do you guys still have energy for another one? Good, okay. Before we'll start, we'll have an agreement. I'm going to share my experience, you guys are going to share questions and feedback at the end, right? We might have time for questions after my talk, so hold on. If not, just share that on Twitter, okay? I love Twitter, so just ask all your questions and share your thoughts. I do really care about it. Okay. Sculpt. Who knows Sculpt? One person who actually gave me the first Sculpt book. So this is my favorite graphic novel. It's really addictive, great stuff. And there's a trick in the plot. Almost every chapter actually starts with the conclusion, right? It helps the author make the point, and then he's actually explaining the entire story so we can get into the mood. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I have only 2 points. First one, you can be in Silicon Valley. That's my first, most important point of the entire talk. Second point is that your city or region can be like Silicon Valley, but there's one condition to that. We have to commit to the culture. Silicon Valley is a really place that really is founded on the very specific culture, and this is what we have to commit to. So I'm going to tell you how to be there without any travels. I'm going to tell you how to create Silicon Valley around you. Okay? And I'm treating this presentation, and almost everything in my life, to be honest, as a project, right? So the project, any project should have an objective, and my objective is to induce Silicon Valley state of mind into your brains through storytelling. And my key result is having one of you, at least one of you, starting a company, Silicon Valley-like company, and calling me sometime in the future, maybe next month, maybe next year, and telling me that you did it, you started a business, and it's going great, okay? This is my measure of success. This is how I'm going to feel successful. Okay, you might wonder by now why me. I'm Polish, right? I grew up not too far from here in Gdańsk. So why I'm actually discussing Silicon Valley, right? So I need to present some credentials so you guys can trust me. So I started this baby, UXPin. We help companies streamline their design workflow. We work with companies like HBO or PayPal or Sapient. They use our platform to go through the entire product design process together, right? They're building their next generation software, mobile apps, web apps together in UXPin. This is the company that I started, but we started really tiny. There was just 3 of us in 2010 here in Gdańsk, and we were actually selling paper prototyping notepads. Tiny, tiny product, right? Today, there's over 70 people in UXPin who have customers in over 150 countries, and I do live in Silicon Valley these days after 2 rounds of funding for the company. And I am a relentless observer. I spent 8 years on university, on 2 of them, studying psychology and philosophy. And after 3 years in the Silicon Valley, I'm always saying that this was kind of like a crash course through Silicon Valley. Over 150 meetings with VCs, that was my window into this entire world. And during the 2 rounds that we raised for UXPin. So these are my credentials, right? Very condensed experience of Silicon Valley through very stressful time of my life. And it's going to be controversial. Some of you might actually hate me after this presentation, but I really want to say what I'm going to say. So bear with me. First, what the hell is Silicon Valley? You guys know this show, right? Who's watching the show? Some people, all right? It's all true. Everything that's happened in the show, I do believe it could happen to any company in the Valley, but this is focused on the bad stuff, right? I'm going to focus on the good stuff. So it's not only, like this episode with a horse that might happen, these people are crazy, but there's also plenty of value, good, solid value in Silicon Valley. And this is something that we are going to focus on. And when I'm saying Silicon Valley, I don't mean this historical center, or not only that, right? So this mint color, that's the Valley of Santa Clara. This is the birthplace of Silicon Valley. But today, whenever we're saying Silicon Valley, we're really thinking about the entire San Francisco Bay Area region, right? From San Francisco through San Jose to Oakland. This is the place where all these tech companies and all these millionaires live. And of course, Silicon Valley is usually defined by all these great companies that were started there, right? Google, Apple, HP, of course, one of the first companies there from the modern era, and thousands of others. There's just tremendous amount of great businesses that are started every year in Silicon Valley. But I do prefer numbers. So I prepared a little bit of a comparison for you guys, gross domestic product of Silicon Valley and Poland. And it doesn't look too bad, huh? Silicon Valley, $810 billion every year generated in this tiny, tiny region. 18th place among countries, right? If we would treat Silicon Valley as a country, it would be on 18th place worldwide. Poland, 508, not bad, right? 23rd place, we should be very proud, especially after everything that happens to our country in the past, right? We've made it. We are right at the top, right? Looks great. But if you actually compare per capita, it's becoming easier to understand how powerful is Silicon Valley. So with over $105,000 per year per person in Silicon Valley, that basically means first up to fourth place, depending on the methodology when it comes to gross domestic product, right? So tiny region with this powerful productivity. This is what Silicon Valley is all about. And Poland is not quite there yet, right? And I've made a very little experiment. I decided to give it a try and treat Tri-City, our region here, 1 million people, slightly over 1 million people, and apply Silicon Valley-like productivity to check how much value could we generate in gross domestic product. And this is quite amazing. If we would be as effective as Silicon Valley, we would be able to generate over $100 billion per year, right? What it means is that 1/5 of our country's GDP, gross domestic product, could be generated in this one tiny region, 1/38 of the population, okay? Think about it. How powerful is the productivity of Silicon Valley when you apply numbers, actual dollars to it? So the question is, what really makes Silicon Valley so extremely powerful, and how can we replicate that? And I know, like in Europe, there's plenty of these kind of conversations. You probably were on at least 10 presentations about Silicon Valley, right? And how to replicate that in Europe. Berlin is going after that, Krakow, Warsaw, Gdańsk, right? Israel, certainly, with moderate success in all these places. But usually, when people are actually discussing this kind of stuff, they're focusing on the access of capital, networking, right? And startup community in general. And this is part of the truth, right? Because if you think about population of Silicon Valley, 30%, so almost every third person in the private sectors, employed in the private sector, actually works for high-tech companies. So 30% of the population is in high-tech, in IT, right? So this is something, it basically means that there must be community there. But this is, in my opinion, not something which is crucial for the spirit of the Valley. There's a different stat, different number. So I spotted that on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and basically just blown my mind. So 37%, over 30% of population of San Francisco Bay Area, right? Silicon Valley, this extended version of Silicon Valley, 30% wasn't actually born in the United States, including me, right? 67% of people working in IT, tech and math, these people are actually not from United States, they're not from California, they moved there. 67% is a huge number. If you think about repercussions for the culture of the place, people are coming from all over the world, and somehow they're actually able to work together and create this tremendous value, $810 billion per year. So this is really something, but of course we know that it actually could mean problem with immigration. Because it means that 67% of the society are actually immigrants, right? But they understand there in Silicon Valley that diversity is necessary for growth, and it comes with the culture. To actually stop problems or to prevent any problems, you have to live with the value of openness and respect for people who are different than you. And they know that diversity of society is really the engine for the growth. Because if you want to produce this tremendous value in this tiny place, you have to attract people and talent from everywhere in the world, right? And you have to make a constant effort to actually make all these people feel welcome in your region. And this is not a new concept for this region, right? This is the population growth chart that I prepared myself, based on the Wikipedia, of course. And it shows one thing. So mid-19th century, gold rush was the first wave of people moving from everywhere in the world, right, especially Asian countries, to Silicon Valley because they were seeking gold, right? It's not that different from actual Silicon Valley today. And that was driving the growth of population. So they have basically almost 200 years of experience in integrating immigrants into society. And this is something which is extremely important for the culture. And what it means in practical terms is that Silicon Valley, San Francisco, is the center for the fight for equality. Whether that's social justice, LGBT movement, of course, it's huge in San Francisco, feminism, it's all there, and people are actually making the effort to deploy these ideas and make them powerful in the society. And not everything is perfect, believe me. Income inequality is actually higher than average in the United States. It's very visible. Who actually from you guys were in Silicon Valley? Raise your hands. Some people, many of them actually work for UXPin. This is weird. Okay. So it's pretty obvious if you are there that there's huge income inequality, right? And of course, there's a racial problem because 82% of founders are white males, right? But the thing is about Silicon Valley is that people actually consider that to be a problem. And they want to find a solution and figure out how we can solve this problem so we can be more equal on the societal level because we understand that this is the fuel for growth of the region. This is not only ethical, this is not only moral, this is actually important for the economy of this region and of the country and basically the world, right? So, the first lesson that I want you guys to remember, your first lesson on the path to create Silicon Valley-like culture around you or inside of you in your mind is that we have to be open to people who are different and we have to make them feel welcome around us, wherever we are, whether that's our company or around you in your neighborhood. Think about it, this is one of the foundations of Silicon Valley culture. All right, we started on a high-level society, right? Big problems, we're going to stay with big problems, but we're going to focus on our path, our journey at UXPin. So chapter 1. We started the company in 2010 together with my co-founders. We worked for another great company, a startup in Gdynia. And we just spotted a huge problem when it comes to collaboration of people with different backgrounds, right? Designers and all the non-designers who are involved in building a product, right? Of course, marketing, of course, developers, right? Business analysts, whoever that is. We just had a hard time working together and building this product that we had in our minds. We had a hard time executing on our vision. Started to organize workshops, and then we basically produced this pretty weird product, physical paper product in Notepad, and that was the start of our business. And to our surprise, it became extremely successful. We started to sell to Apple, to IBM, to Google quickly. We started to sell mostly to the United States right away after the launch of the product. And then, a year later, we actually launched our application. Slightly bigger problem because we started to go after entire product design workflow and bigger solution because we actually, encouraged by our customers, we built the digital version of UXPin. And soon after launch, we didn't have much back then, right? A couple of customers and product which wasn't that great, to be honest, in 2011, much different than what we have today. But these guys believed in us, Innovation Nest. And they told us something that I would never forget. They told us that we have something interesting, but in order to make it great, we have to learn. And to learn, we have to go to Silicon Valley and think about the culture, talk to people who actually did something great in their life, and learn from them with open minds. And we did travel to Silicon Valley almost immediately after we actually left our steady full-time positions. And the goal was very simple. We wanted to learn, we wanted to improve, so anything goes, right? If people would think that our product is shit, we're taking that, we're going to improve and be better. This is what we were thinking back then. 2 weeks, 30 meetings, and no breaks, definitely no breaks for fun and tourism, just business meetings. And to my surprise, people from Google, people from Kissmetrics, and all these great companies, they wanted to actually meet us and help us. And that was shocking. I remember my first meeting was with CEO of Adaptive Path, Brandon Shower, Adaptive Path is one of the historically most important UX agencies, UX consultancies, right? And he just stopped whatever he was doing to go for lunch with us so we can discuss business, right? And he wanted to help, and there was nothing for him there. We didn't offer him money, because we didn't have any, right? We didn't offer him anything special. He just wanted to help. Irene now from Google back then, VP of UX at Google, she was so willing to meet with us and help us. Today she's our advisor, right? And so is Hidden Shaq, former CEO of Kissmetrics. And I started to really learn about this amazing culture and something that they call in Silicon Valley the paid forward culture. So they believe that basically you have to help people because we are all in that together. And you don't expect any immediate value coming from helping people. This is just part of the experience. And this is because, like today, somebody needs help, you might need help in a couple of years, right? You never know that. Or you needed help in your past, and you are just paying debt to the society, to your small society, right, around yourself. This is the paid forward culture, and it's extremely, extremely important for Silicon Valley, state of mind. So lesson 2 that I want you guys to remember, so you can be in Silicon Valley in your minds, right, or take your city to Silicon Valley, is that we have to help people, and we cannot make it transactional, right? This is not about gaining shares, gaining money, right, for helping people. This is all about the experience of actually paying it forward for what's in front of us, because we are in this together. Chapter 2. So we started to regularly visit Silicon Valley and just continue to learn and build the product. And after a while, it was going pretty good, right? It was at least okay. We had customers, we had solid traction. We knew that it's going to be something. So we needed to raise capital. And to be honest, we didn't know how difficult fundraising is because Innovation Nest actually came to us in Poland, right? So we never had this experience of actually going after investors and hearing no many, many times, right? So I actually did the math for you guys. Across 2 rounds for UXPin, we've heard no at least 60 times. So now imagine the burden that is actually, it has on you, right? So I remember, especially in our Series A, usually on Friday afternoon, I was getting calls from investors, and every single call was full of hope, right? I thought like, okay, this guy is calling me. The meeting was great. I think they're going to invest. Awesome, right? I have a team in Poland waiting for that information. So hopefully this is it. And then after 15 minutes long conversation, I shit you not, like some investors don't have guts to actually just tell it, right? Say it, like I'm not going to invest. First they're going to tell you how great you are, how promising is the business, and then after 15 minutes they're like, oh, by the way, we are not going to invest, right? This is not something for us. So I've heard it 60 times, at least 60 times. And this is really devastating. This is why usually CEOs in Silicon Valley are saying, fundraising is always a soul-sucking experience, right? This is the phrase that we usually use for describing fundraising, because you're losing something inside of you and you're definitely changing. But we've managed to bring on great investors, right? They continue to help us today, and I'm very grateful. All of these guys, we've been very lucky to have them on board with us and help us build this amazing business that UXPin is today. But the lesson for you out of this experience, and this is something that I'm like almost like this is my thing that I'm saying to myself every single day. No matter what's going on, entrepreneurs should persevere. Because defeat is a choice. And it sounds weird, right? Who's choosing actually to lose? But you would be surprised. I've met so many great entrepreneurs from Europe. In Silicon Valley, they're usually visiting our office in Mountain View, and they're asking me for some advice, right, on their path. And I'm always thinking, like, these guys are awesome. They're so smart. Their business is great. And then they're just giving up on fundraising because it's tough, right? It's tough. And they're giving up, so they're choosing to lose. And the only difference between us and them is that we never actually agreed to lose anything. We were just moving forwards, right? Because this is what we wanted to do. We had signs that it makes sense, so we pushed forward as far as we could. So this is the lesson 3, right? So just a recap. Lesson number 1. Be open, respect people who are different than you. Lesson number 2, what was the lesson number 2, guys? Anybody? Help people, right? Help people. Lesson number 3, no matter what's going on, persevere, right? Don't give up, keep fighting. If it makes sense. If it doesn't, quit, right? If you don't have any customers after 2 years, nobody wants your product, it's probably a good idea to actually quit. But if you have something, if you feel that you are actually delivering value, persevere, right? Keep fighting. All right, chapter 3. So we raised money, right? It seems like a dream for any company, at least if you're reading TechCrunch, right? It was important for us. We never actually treated that as our goal, of course, right? This is a necessary evil. But we did it, and we started to build bigger and bigger team. And then I started to learn something interesting about human beings, right? And these two chaps, they're actually Polish. And this is one of our old offices in Poland. But I think these guys are actually the best description of what Silicon Valley is all about, and definitely I see that in our American employees. They do treat work personal. This is something that is an extension of themselves, right? This is not just a 9-to-5 work that they're just taking and then they're living to their lives and they do not think about work after work, right? Because this is not work, this is them, right? They just love it. This is how they live. This is what was their choice of lifestyle. And this is something that people in Silicon Valley say over and over. I have a luck to work with many experienced CEOs. They keep coaching me, much older, much more experienced people than myself. And this is what they always say to me. Work on something that gives you energy, because this is supposed to be an extension of yourself. This is you, right? So find out what gives you energy and just keep doing it with all the power. And fortunately for us at UXPin, we have these people on board. We are seeking people like that who can actually think about work in a personal way. And they always, every single day, they strive to be better. And my personal story, actually from Gdańsk, rather from Sopot, is that when I was 19, I worked in KFC. That was my first solid job after teaching people how to play guitar, gathering raspberries, all this shit. I started to work when I was 19 at KFC. First day at work, and I was delegated to chop tomatoes for the entire day. Chopping tomatoes, that was my job, right? And then after 8 hours, and I was just always gazing at the clock, because it's pretty hard to spend 8 hours chopping tomatoes. And after 8 hours, I was, woo, great day, first day at work, I remember we were earning maybe 4 zloty per hour or something like that. That was a long time ago. And I just started to pack my things. I wanted to leave. And then my shift manager stopped me, and she started to yell at me, really hard. She was a great manager, actually. And then she told me, I'm not going to swear on stage. I don't think that's allowed here. But she told me, what the F are you thinking you're doing, right? And I was like, I chopped tomatoes for 8 hours. It's time to go home. I'm like, great first day. Yay, congrats, right? And she told me that the job is done when you're finished doing what you were doing, not when 8 hours time, 8 hours passed, right? That was the single most important lesson in my life, because I understood immediately that this is all about the sense of duty. If somebody trusted you to chop tomatoes, and you had 5 boxes of tomatoes, you're supposed to do it, right? It's not about 8 hours. This is the wrong way to think about any kind of work, because it's removing passion from whatever you're doing. So I learned that the job is done when all the objectives are met, not when any kind of time passes. So lesson 4, work hard. And believe me, people in Silicon Valley know a lot about that one. This is part of their culture. And focus on your goals, right? So remember the KFC story whenever you're tired at work. Okay, so how to be in Silicon Valley? It's kind of easy. You don't have to actually fly there. It's a long flight. You just have to do all these 4 things, right? First, probably the most important fundamental thing about Silicon Valley, be open to people who are different. Accept the differences, respect them, make it work. Number 2, help people. Be open to help people, right? Don't expect anything in return. It might not happen. Just do it because it makes sense. 3, no matter what's going on, persevere, keep fighting. Don't choose defeat. Again, this is part of the culture. This is what created all this value of $810 billion. This is something that could actually change the fate of our region here we could generate $105 billion if we would be able to master that. I do believe in that. And 4, work really, really hard and focus on your goals, because our jobs, whatever we are doing in life, right, even if that's chopping tomatoes, it's all about the sense of duty, not about the time that we are spending in any place. And this is it. 4 simple lessons that I really hope you guys will take to your businesses, and sometime in the future, you're going to call me and you're going to tell me, I started this amazing business. And maybe you'll visit me in Silicon Valley. Maybe your path will actually lead through the valley to whatever you're planning to do with your lives. But I do hope at least one of you will do it, start a great business, and I will know about it. And you will tell me that you built Silicon Valley around you, right? It's not about geography, it's about the culture. So we do have to think about it. 4 lessons. And this is it. So now you can ask questions and destroy me.
All right.
Or challenge me.
Thank you so much. Give a big round of applause for Marcin. We have time for one question. So, anybody sitting on a question? Just raise your hand. We'll have a mic find you. Looks like there's one down here. There we go. All right.
Hello.
Hi.
You talked about that openness and opening at other people's immigrants, and that it is a great opportunity that different people come to the Silicon Valley. In Europe, we have that opportunity coming to us each day, almost 1 million people, immigrants. How to use that opportunity well in a short time?
Well, this is probably the most important question in Europe. I do not aspire to actually have this kind of knowledge, right? I'm not a politician, I'm an entrepreneur. I would know how to incorporate some people with different cultures inside of a company. And believe me, we have people at UXPin from Pakistan, from China, from Korea, right? Different cultures from India, and of course from Poland, right? And they're able to work together no matter what their religion is, right? Because this is not about your religion, this is about who you are and what kind of respect do you have for other cultures. I do think, and this is going to be extremely controversial, I do think that if you approach people, immigrants in Europe, from the position of hate, right, and accusations, this is actually impossible to build any kind of culture around that, right? And I do not aspire to have the definite answer how to solve this problem, but I think a little bit more of respect would be welcome and would make it easier to incorporate all these people, and I believe that many of them are extremely talented, into our culture, so we can actually grow our gross domestic product, right, and progress on our way to become a great, great country, right? And we've done many of that, right, in the past in Poland. I mean, we do have significant amount of people from Ukraine, right, of course. There are people from Germany. And we could talk about it whole night, right? Especially in our region here. I mean, like most of us, including myself, we don't have Polish names, right? Last names. We don't. Our ancestors were probably, I don't think they even spoke Polish. And somehow it works, right, for the country. I don't know if I answered your question, but I tried.
I think you did. And it was a lot about the openness that you've been talking about. Thank you so much for your great insights. Give a big round of applause for Marcin Treder from UXPin. Big round of applause, guys. Thank you.